Where'll you be going?
Texas?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Go on, make it happen.
And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome to Mallet and Michelle. I am Michelle, your local source of sunshine, sarcasm, and small town scoop. It's hotter than a jalapeno on a dashboard out here, and we're keeping it cool with stories that matter, laughs that last, and co-hosts who run at 2 a.m. just to beat the Texas heat.
It's true.
That's right. That's Steve Mallet.
I just said that the other day. If you're running after 6 a.m., you've run too late in the day.
Does it get hotter at that time too?
No, it gets hotter from there on out. I'm usually done by about 6 o'clock, 6:15. So it's been cooking, and it's gonna get worse. So, got to thank our sponsors.
We do need to thank our sponsors, Jovi Belterra.
I was going to say, Jovi Belterra, I got their calendar. These are some of the events they have. If you're 55 plus and you want to live in a wonderful community, they have poker night on Wednesdays. On the 29th of this month, they got Sunday Fun Day. They have Sip and Paint this Friday, Aquafit on Thursday, Senior Strength every other Thursday. There's some cool stuff going on there. Oh, look at Michelle. She's flexing. Okay. And
South Star Bank.
South Star Bank. Speaking of running, I was running in Austin the other day, ran by 2 different South Star Bank locations, and I thought to myself, man, they are everywhere.
Well, look at that. And then we also have Mallet Integrity Team Real Estate.
Because we couldn't do it without them. And
we are thrilled. You ready? You want to put this over there in our little camera? We are thrilled to welcome Deep Eddy Vodka as our new sponsor of Mallet and Michelle on Dripping Springs. Founded in Austin in 2010, Deep Eddy Vodka draws its name from the historic Deep Eddy Pool, Texas' oldest swimming pool, known for its laid-back vibes and cool waters, crafted with real ingredients and a splash of Texas spirit. Deep Eddy brings the essence of our hometown to every bottle. Whether you're enjoying a sunny afternoon or a relaxing evening, Deep Eddy Vodka is a perfect companion. Thank you so much, Deep Eddy. Estachio, Deep Eddy Tasting Room. We are so thrilled.
I am thrilled to be partnered with them right now.
Very excited.
Yeah, great organization, really plugged into the community. It's a wonderful place for you to go with your family on the weekends, and there's food trailers, and you can have a drink, you can have a mocktail. Yeah, it's cool. I'm really glad they
have lots of events. You know, I think I talked about this like 2 years ago or maybe a year ago, but Estachio, he was hosting these movie nights, and I said, if you host a movie night with Steel Magnolias, I will have all of my crew there. And I think 20 of us showed up.
I think that's true.
We had the best time.
And you did. You had a great time. I heard about it for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, we had a really, really good time. But so thank you again, Deep Eddy. We are thrilled to. Now we've been hinting for a while now, and you and I just did our commercials. Yep,
and we just inked the deal with them. So it's done, and we are super excited. I was reminded the other day, if you want to follow our podcast, not everybody knows where to access it. You can go to our website. If you go to Mallet and Michelle on ds.com, there's a little tab at the top, and it says follow. And if you click on that, you can get right to Apple. You can get right to Spotify. Bunch of other places you can listen to it right from our website.
Also, you can judge me on YouTube on my camera abilities, because when I just hit the camera, it was blank.
I think she messed it up again.
No, it was like the camera. So now it's on both you and I. So just fast forward 5 seconds and you'll see you and I. But if you want to see what we actually look like, you don't want to see that.
Especially me.
What do you do?
I've got a couple of quick things. I wanted to talk briefly about that storm that we had a week or so ago.
The microburst?
Yeah, it was May 29th, and you were in Austin, I think.
I was downtown. I was at Seaholm, and it happened 2 blocks away from me.
Yeah, well, it was huge, right? They had golf ball-sized hail. They had 9 water rescues downtown, people that got stuck in floodwaters. 1 person was swept away and died. Yeah. They estimated that the winds were Hurricane Force 1 winds.
It was like 85 mile per hour, right?
85 miles
You know what was weird? When I walked out of Trader Joe's, I looked up at the sky because I literally parked right in front of Trader Joe's. And I looked up and I was like, wow, that looks like a really weird sky, like really strange. And it was
Well, it
kind of
was.
behind me. And I got in my car and I drove towards Drip and not a drop
Oh,
of
yeah,
rain
we didn't get
fell.
anything
I
out
didn't
here.
know anything had happened behind me.
Yeah, they got 2 to 3 inches of rain, depending on where they measured it downtown. 60,000 people without electricity for a couple days.
Our photographer as well, 3 days.
There are still people now a week or so later without power in Austin because over 100 power poles were knocked down in the city of Austin.
Trevor told me yesterday, I asked him how long. He said 3 days. And he goes, we saw the transformer blow. We saw the electric company out there and all of the neighbors were out there and they did like their beep, bop, boop, and they plugged it in.
Yeah.
And he looked back and he says, him and 2 other houses were dark because we were on another grid.
Oh, jeez.
And they were driving off and we're like, wait.
Turn us back on. Well, I want to remind our listeners that old saying, turn around, don't drown, is really true. Apparently, this person that was swept away did not heed that warning. Over 127 people a year die in flash floods in this country.
Where were they?
They were up north. They went through an underpass somewhere and got swept away. So, yeah, you can't be too careful. Other thing I wanted to let everybody know, I met with the Friedmans this morning, who head up the Dripping Springs Art League.
Yes.
They are going to announce in a week or so that they're doing a collaboration with Time and Dough right there on Mercer.
Nice.
And they're going to have the Dripping Springs Art League Gallery, official gallery inside Time and Dough starting in August.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah,
well, good
local
for
artists-
Fabian.
She really supports them a lot. So local artists will have their stuff down there for viewing and for sale starting sometime in August.
That is
Very
great.
cool.
I know they also get a lot of visitors that come in and out of there, just people that aren't even dripping. So maybe a lot of our local artists will get spread across the country.
I think it's been great that we've been the wedding capital of Texas, but we need to diversify a little bit and becoming
the podcaster capital of Texas.
The podcasting capital of Dripping Springs is right here in Dripping Springs. But Wimberley has a little bit of an art following. People go down there for art. Fredericksburg has some. Dripping, we've got to have more than just the wedding venues, and being a destination for art would be really good for our community across the board.
I think that's a great idea. Oh, who's our guest today?
Oh, Dusty Drake, Dynamo Dusty Tree Services is coming on. He's super interesting guy.
Dynamo Dusty. I'm glad you said tree service because it sounded like we were having a stripper on. We got Dynamo Dusty on stage 3. Way to go, Dusty.
He's a cool guy. Graduate of West Point.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah, has had a really interesting journey in his life. Now he's a shaman and owns this tree service, and he's going to come in and tell us about his life. And it sounds like all the twists and turns that he's had along the way.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty interesting.
It is interesting.
I'm excited. That's why you and I walked around the building so we could meditate.
Get our little meditation
meditate.
in, a little bit of peace.
Well, our Texas lawmakers, good old Texas lawmakers, they just finished their 140-day legislative session that they had, and I have a couple of highlights that are going to interest you. Well, we talked about it earlier, the school vouchers, that thing passed. I wasn't a fan of that. That passed. This is probably on a lot of people's mind right now, a ban approved concerning products containing concerning THC. I'm telling you, if Governor Abbott does not veto this bill, Governor
has he indicated that he will?
He has stayed silent on this, but Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, you can kiss your governorship hopes if you had any of them goodbye. But basically what it is, it's hemp retailers and recreational users will only be allowed now to sell and consume non-intoxicating cannabinoids like CBD and CBG. This is what's the confusing part is it's 6 years after they approved it. So they approved it 6 years ago and now they're taking away. The veteran groups and the hemp industry leaders are calling for Abbott to veto this bill. I actually emailed Governor Abbott, and I'm a big proponent of things that help veterans and disabled people, and it was super easy. You just send an email to Governor Abbott, and I told him I've donated, I've met you, and I'm a mother of a veteran, so He's not going to listen to me. But anyways.
You know what? I bet if he gets enough emails, he will.
I would hope so. But the big winner in all of this is Big Pharma.
Yeah,
That's the big winner.
And that's who was pumping the money into it, I'm sure.
Well, and the proponents, they sold this bill promising this planned expansion of a limited medical marijuana program. So it's like, oh, well, pass this, and then we're gonna eventually we'll pass this, which is crap. So,
and then they will sell that. They will produce and sell that stuff as, what do you call it, pharmacological products.
Pharmacological?
Yes, but then they'll be, they'll charge, instead of charging whatever it is, $30 for a dose, they'll charge $300 for a dose, and you have to get it approved by your insurance.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing. I mean, there's like exemptions and, Crohn's and MS and all this other stuff.
I know there's plenty of people that have gotten really good results from taking CBD products.
I do as well, and I think they should treat it like alcohol. Over 21, I mean, alcohol shows far-reaching more issues than the THC does. But, some people are still old school, and we're a Bible Belt and say that it's a gateway drug, and so whatever.
Which cracks me up. I mean, alcohol does way, way more damage to people than
I know.
It's
crazy. But so some of the other ones that were passing or waiting to pass, stricter bail laws. It allows judges to deny bail for certain violent crimes like rape and attacks and things. The Texas Lottery, they can no longer buy tickets online through apps. We had talked about that woman that had won. So the water infrastructure bill, I don't know if you heard about this, but a deal was reached dedicating $1 billion over the course of the next 20 years to fixing the state's fragile water infrastructure and boosting the water supply. I'm sorry, but we have the Gulf of America. Yes, I said it. We have the Gulf of America, and I don't know why we can't figure out how to turn salt water.
Apparently, it can be done, but right now it's so expensive to do it, it's not cost effective.
So I don't understand. I mean, $1 billion? You can't tell me that it's not going to...
I think for them to come up with a solution to turn salt water into fresh water would cost $1 trillion in any kind of volume that would make a difference with what we're dealing with.
Maybe. I don't know. But that was my take. That's stupid. Religion in school. I don't know how I feel about this one. I'm a Christian. I believe that we should have freedom of religion in our schools. Every public school must now display the 10 Commandments in a visible place. It builds on the In God We Trust that was passed a couple of years ago. There's a bunch of civil rights groups that have threatened to sue the state if passed. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional when Louisiana tried to do it, so this probably won't stand. But I don't really know how I feel about this one.
Yeah, I think where that's coming from is that we went from not having religion promoted in school, which I don't think we should, to being, in some cases, anti-religion, like across the board.
Yeah,
and
I can agree with that.
And, whether you're a Christian or not, there's really nothing in the 10 Commandments that most reasonable people would argue with, as far as I know.
I know, but I just don't know if having it mandated. But that's that's neither here nor there, my opinion. But Texas now strictly defines men and women based on their reproductive organs. Some of in the community fear, that their driver's license and their birth certificates that were changed or amended will, will be affected, and also the bathroom usage. So there's also another caveat to that. If insurance companies pay for transitions, they should also pay for the detransitioning as well. Okay. So that was passed. On the abortion bill, we have one of the strongest abortion bills in the country. It passed a narrow clarification of the state's abortion ban. It allows doctors more legal protection while performing medically necessary abortions, even when death is not imminent. Also, no state funding for out-of-state abortion travel. So that was passed.
I think that was there was a gray area that needed clarification. So that was just a clarification issue on that.
A lot of these are also on Abbott's desk. So see, he still has to sign them. So some of them he can still veto or whatnot. This is very important for us. property taxes. In regards to property taxes, they raised our homestead exemption from $100K to $140,000. With larger breaks for senior citizens and people with disabilities as well. And then there was a business owner property tax, and it's an exemption up to $125,000 of business inventory. I'm not an accountant. I don't pretend to play
you
one.
Pay tax on if you carry a lot of inventory, you pay tax on it.
So
at the end of the year.
that one is supposed to come up for, if that one passes, it's going to come up for the November election. So we'll be able to vote for that.
one of your favorite sayings. Riddle me this, Batman.
Yeah.
How come they gave us the increased homestead exemption, and now they've increased it again, and my property taxes have gone up every single freaking year?
Because
it's a bait and switch.
It is a bait and switch.
They're not lowering our property taxes.
No, they're not.
We're not getting lower property taxes.
Nope.
It's not happening.
Nope, they're not. This one is very important. I know a lot of people have been interested in this, especially what's been going up in the North Dallas area. They have put property ownership restrictions on foreign entities. So China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia can no longer buy property in Texas. I don't know.
At all?
I guess at all. I don't know really what that means on existing property they already own. So I didn't really deep dive into that one.
Is it governments can't?
It said foreign entities, and so I was wondering. I was wondering the same thing. Like if you were a citizen or a dual citizen, are you still able? I don't understand. So maybe you could do a little deep dive on that one.
I'll look into that. See if I can find out some more stuff.
But House Bill 2013, I have nicknamed this one the Chicken Bill. Okay, so the Chicken Bill.
I want to hear about this one.
This now prohibits HOAs from banning or restricting chickens as long as the municipal ordinance allows it. It didn't say anything about roosters.
Oh, I got you.
Nothing but just chickens.
If the city that you're in, say the city of Dripping Springs, allows you to have backyard chickens, there can't be an HOA that says no.
Belterra can no longer say you can't have chickens. You can have chickens. There may be a clarification.
They're not in the city limits.
They're in the ETJ.
That may be different.
I don't know because it's under HOA. I mean, there's some clarifications.
Let me tell you, if you live in Belterra and you have a rooster, you're an asshole.
You are an asshole for sure. But also, this was interesting to me. Also, it's going to prevent HOAs from restricting composting, rainwater systems. I'm going to butcher this wrong. It's efficient irrigation, but it's not. How do you say it? Efficient, like reuse water.
Okay. I'm not
whatever
sure
that is. And drought-resistant landscaping, xeriscaping. They can't tell you can't.
That.
And so all of that is supposed to go. That was passed. All of that is supposed to go enacted September 1st. Yeah. So there's a lot that they did. There was things that they didn't do that they promised. But
the chicken one's interesting to me. It's gonna be funny how to see that play out. I could see because not everybody takes good care of their animals, and chickens, if they are not cleaned on a regular basis and taken care of, are really they're smell
smelly.
Bad. They are very smelly. Like Holly cleans her coop out like once every week or 10 days, if not more. So it's going to be interesting.
They are smelly. You know, these are the things that have actually passed. They've already been signed.
Need to be signed into law.
Nope, they've already been signed into law. This one was signed in May 3rd. This one is very interesting to me, just having a granddaughter. This is Senate Bill 2. This bill created an education saving account program to allow Texas parents to use taxpayer dollars. Oh, wait, that was the school voucher one. Sorry. Okay. There's one that's also like a savings account. Sorry, I was getting that one confused with something else. This is Senate Bill 5. This bill allocates $3 billion towards creating the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas to study dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and other brain conditions. The funding mechanism for House Bill 5 is through Senate Joint Resolution 3, so which I think that is great. Here's the other one. We talked about the bail restriction. That one was already passed. This one is Joint Resolution 5. This measure represents a proposed change to the Texas Constitution and will appear on the November ballot for voters to consider. If approved, judges will no longer be allowed, this is the expansion of the bail one, to grant bail for violent crimes for murder and rape, which maybe that's great. And then the other one, the Senate Bill 326, this bill would require schools to use common but controversial definitions of anti-Semitism in school disciplinary proceedings. The legislature is in response to a pro-Palestine protest, including those at the University of Texas. So they're putting restrictions on that. You know, given what just happened in Boulder, Colorado.
People need to step back a little bit. There's some
me
crazy stuff going on in this country.
There is some
and
crazy stuff.
There are some people in leadership and powerful positions that are saying some very irresponsible things that are getting these people to act in ways that are killing people, and that needs to stop.
Absolutely. Have you also heard of the Death Star law? Have you heard of that one? This is overriding any city ordinances. It's House Bill 2127, also known as the Death Star law. It prevents cities and counties from enacting local laws stricter than state law. That reminds me of the COVID restrictions that were going on. And so
smart.
this is
So
probably,
that's
and
good.
there's also things about.
Not that the city of Austin could care.
No.
Even a little bit.
No,
about
they couldn't care.
what
But
the state says.
there are also laws out there. I didn't go into them about the power grid issues, combating fentanyl, sexually explicit performances for in the presence of children. Compassionate use law, which is the expansion of the medical marijuana law, and then DEI and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of things that are going on. There's a lot of moving parts. There's it's interesting.
I have another moving part, kind of piggybacking onto what you've been talking about. The education department this month announced that June is officially Title IX month in the United States of America.
Really?
Yeah. So they just announced it. And do you know much about Title IX?
It's the women.
It's most people think it's just women and sports, but it actually covers 10 different key areas addressed by the law. It starts out with no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So this was passed in 1972, was Title IX. It changed women's sports the most because prior to this, most girls in school weren't even allowed to play sports. Did you know that?
I didn't.
If you were in...
I would be okay with that if I didn't have to dress out for PE.
For me. Yeah, right.
Please restrict me.
A lot of schools thought that girls were incapable of performing sports or doing sports. They encouraged them to do things like home ec and
typing class.
Yeah, what was the other? Square dancing. Do you remember square dancing was kind of a thing?
Not once have I ever had to use square dancing in my adult life.
Yeah. So this goes way back a little bit before Title IX, but there were people that warned women that were physically active were not only unfeminine, but it was proof of lesbianism. There's some crazy things that were done.
Bunch of whores.
Other people claim that sports would hurt reproductive organs as well as a woman's chances of marriage. So I think it's really cool that the United States is celebrating Title IX month in the United States now. It's you've come a long way, baby. You remember that old saying.
Yeah.
Things have women are finally getting the respect in most cases that they deserve.
Hey, progress, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't know better, you do better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to know better to do better, and I think that's just all what we want. If you don't learn about the past, then you are just most destined to repeat it. And I think I have a granddaughter and I have a daughter, and if she wants to play soccer, God help her.
Yeah. Women are...
Pick an indoor sport, maybe.
One where there's air conditioning. Yeah,
Pick
play
an
indoor soccer. I found, when I was going through this story, I found some other things. In the United States, until 1923, it was illegal for women to wear pants.
That was 102 years ago.
Yes. So 102 years ago, it would have been illegal for you to come to work in pants. in up until 1993, female senators, so a woman could become a senator, but she couldn't wear pants on the Senate floor.
Do you know
until
that
1993?
My first office job, I worked at a big accounting firm, and I was the front receptionist.
Yeah.
And I got in trouble. Okay, what year was this? 93, 94?
Well, there you go.
I got in trouble for coming to work one day without wearing pantyhose.
Oh God!
I literally got written up for not wearing pantyhose.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then we moved to Austin, and nobody was wearing pantyhose, and everybody's wearing flip flops.
It's because it's 106 degrees in the
San
summer.
Antonio is the same thing, but that was crazy.
Well, in the United States, we did better than Paris because up until 2013 in Paris, you had to have permission from the city to wear pants.
They don't shave their armpits there either.
No,
So
maybe that's why they're like, well, you don't shave your legs, you can't wear pants. Well, that doesn't make sense.
So if I wear pants to work the other day, I'm gonna contact Mayor Bill and I'm gonna ask him to write me a permission slip to wear
permission
pants.
to wear pants.
Please.
Yeah.
Well, let's get our lovely guest Dustin on here. Dusty Drake.
Drake.
Sorry, Dusty Drake.
Dynamo Dusty.
Sorry, Dusty. Sorry, I called you a stripper.
It is a great name.
It is a great name. It's a great name.
Yeah. Well, let's take a little break and get Dusty in here. So hang on, sit tight. We'll be right back.
Vodka flavored vodka? How boring.
At Deep Eddy Vodka, we say, why stop there?
Our vodka's made with real fruit, handcrafted right here in Texas.
We've got bold cocktails, refreshing mocktails, food trailers on the weekends, and plenty of local events.
So come sip something with a little more soul than just plain vodka.
Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Live here, sip here.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room.
South Star Bank has remained true to its Texas roots for over 100 years. A commitment to the people and communities they serve, along with flexible financial solutions, allow their clients to shine. Mortgage loans, checking accounts, or complete business solutions. South Star Bank is your financial partner. South Star Bank, trusted by professionals, backed by tradition, built for Texas.
SouthStarBank.com, member FDIC, an equal housing lender, NMLS 410624. Find your joy at Jovi Belterra. Life is better here. This vibrant 55 and up community is located in Dripping Springs, just right outside of Austin. 1- and 2-bedroom homes, resort-style amenities, and just steps away from shops and restaurants. Forget the yard work. This is your time to relax, make new friends, and enjoy the life you've dreamed of. Find your joy at Jovi Belterra. Life is better here. Live JoviBelterra.com, 737-387-6870.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallet Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at malletintegrityteam.com. And now here's Steve and Michelle.
And we're back with Dusty Drake of Dynamo Dusty's Tree Service. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Dusty.
Thank you.
You're an interesting guy. We actually found a lot of stuff about you online, but I met you through Dripping Springs Elite,
right.
and you've actually done some work on my property,
Yeah.
which was great. So your early life, where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, just north of Scranton. Everybody knows The Office, right, where that was filmed.
Oh,
we
yeah.
were about 15 minutes north of there. Really rural area. Grew up my whole life there. Grew up in the woods, and stayed there till I was 18 and went to school at West Point.
Did you aspire to be a West Point grad?
I did. Actually, it's interesting. My dad was in the reserves, and so when I was in second grade, we went up there to visit him when he was on his 2 weeks of annual training. And I came back, and somehow in my head, I knew that's where I wanted to go to college. So from a really young age, that's where I wanted to go. And then going through high school, I knew what it was required to get in there. So I really tried to structure from ninth grade on to, maximize my chances to get into.
Because you got to be like almost 4.0 to get even considered.
And a congressional appointment as
Yes.
well, right?
Yeah, you do. And maybe not 4.0, but pretty high grade point average. They really look for a more well-rounded person. So, were you on sports teams? And if you were you the captain of the team? Where else did you demonstrate leadership?
Okay.
Did you give back to the community? And those sorts of things as well. And then I had a lot of family history of people being in the military, so that probably helped as well.
Okay.
And then the congressional nomination was interesting because I got interviewed by a panel of veterans from World War II vets to Korean War vets, Vietnam War vets. So that's who the senator chose to interview. And I think there were like 40 people there that day to interview, and I was fortunate enough to get that nomination.
Wow, that's cool.
That is pretty neat.
So
whoa.
Go ahead. Ask him how he ended up in Dripping Springs, Michelle.
Well, I wanted to. What were your sports that you played in Pennsylvania?
So growing up, I played soccer. I was a goalie. I got All-American 3 years in a row. I started a ski club. I didn't have enough money to afford a ski ticket every week to go skiing, but I figured out that if I got 15 people to go, then I skied for free. So I called the local college that also had some people that wanted to ski, and they had a van to get up there. And as long as I got 15 people every week, I got to ski for free.
Wow.
Oh, you were like a little entrepreneur even back then, for sure.
Well, that's one of the, another West Point thing, right? Like leadership, where did you take initiative, that kind of stuff. And I got to ski for free.
Wow.
So,
and then you left West Point and you went out into, was it banking world?
I went to the military first.
Okay. That's right. Yes.
Got my undergrad in mechanical engineering. I was stationed at Fort Hood in field artillery and did 3 years out there. And although my dad was in the first Gulf War and my younger brother was in the second one, I was in that peacetime army when they were scaling down. So after 3 years, they were essentially asking people to go ahead and get out early.
Okay.
So I did that, and that's when I went back and got my MBA at SMU and then started in banking.
Okay.
So you ended up in Texas because you were at Fort Hood.
That's right. And, while I was here, I met my first wife. We got married. Her family was from Dallas. So when I left Fort Hood, we moved up to Dallas, and that's where I went to SMU and then started in banking there.
That's interesting.
In the oil and gas field.
Okay. Big difference owning a tree service from being in the banking industry, Dusty.
Well, what's interesting to me, I didn't even really want to go into commercial banking when I got out of business school, but if y'all remember the dot-com bubble, when I started at business school in 99, Harvard was having trouble keeping MBA students into their second year because they were getting these crazy offers. Well, I did an internship at a dot-com, and halfway through the summer got laid off because they ran out of money. So I thought, well, maybe this dot-com thing is going to burst. And then it did, and then Enron happened. And so by the time I graduated, the market had really turned around. And it was tough for folks to find jobs. So I had an offer to join Bank of Texas in their oil and gas lending group. The guy who hired me was also a veteran. So I did that, and I was like, well, I'll just do this for 5 years and then stick my head up and see what's going on.
Right.
And as it turns out, I learned a lot in banking about how transactions are structured, about contract law, a lot of things that throughout the course of my life, if I look back at the things I did, I can see how they're serving me now, even though at the time maybe I didn't understand how they were working.
You were in such a high stress kind of environment, and I was reading in one of the many articles that I've read about you, because you're an interesting dude, is that you had a heart arrhythmia during some of this. And I guess that was kind of the opening or the doorway open to your holistic journey and spiritual journey. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was definitely a turning point for me. Growing up, I was always interested in, I guess you would call it, spiritual things. When I was a kid, I would read, The Legend of King Arthur and just lots of things in that arena or that realm. But yeah, living a high-stress life, and we were talking earlier about doing things outside the box. I was doing a lot of that in banking, but I didn't have a background in a lot of that stuff, and the vice president above me left the bank, and all of a sudden I was in charge of an $80 million loan portfolio, and my boss walked in and told me that, and his words of advice were, don't F it up, and then he walked out of the room. So I spent a lot of...
I say that to Michelle all day long.
That's like the monkeys running the zoo.
Don't F this up.
Yeah, being from the military, you're supposed to accomplish the mission, so that meant sometimes I'd stay at the bank till 4 a.m. and then go home and shower and change and come back to the bank and keep working.
Wow.
And after doing that for a long enough period of time with that stress and different things, different factors.
You can't sustain that.
Yeah, and my heart just said, okay, it's time to take a break.
How old were you?
I was 33, I think,
No
when that happened.
way.
Wow.
Yeah. And I woke up one day and my heart, I was like, something's not right. And my heart rate was like 230. And I was like, I'll just take an aspirin and go back to bed, which was dumb. And then a couple of days later, I was in the hospital visiting my sister-in-law who just had a baby. And I'm walking to the car. I got worn out. I couldn't even make it. So I went back to the ER and they checked me right in, put me in the hospital for a couple of days, did all the tests and said, we don't know what's going on. You're healthy as a horse, but tomorrow we're going to have to shock you with the paddles to get your heart back into regular rhythm.
Are you awake during that?
They said it's going to, yes, I think you are, but they said it's going to feel like you get kicked in the chest by a mule. And so I was not looking
Not
forward
sure
to
what
that
that feels like,
whatsoever. So I'm sitting there thinking about that. And somehow my ex-wife found these drops by a company called Vital Force Technologies called Heart Support. So she gave me those drops and I took a pinch of sea salt under my tongue. And somewhere I still have the before and after EKG, but 20 minutes later, the nurse came in, and I'm in intensive care. She said, I don't know what just happened, but your heart just went back to normal sinus rhythm, and if it's like this in the morning, you can go home.
Wow.
So they discharged me the next morning. The doc walks in. He's like, you got high blood pressure. You have a family history of high blood pressure. You're going to take these for the rest of your life. And I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I found this acupuncturist who had been a Western medicine doctor. She treated me. I went for 10 treatments. At this point, my heart's totally normal. 10 treatments later, my blood pressure's fine, and I'm 52 now, and my blood pressure's still fine.
Wow.
My entire family has a history on all sides of high blood pressure. That started me on this path of seeking, and then I did a lot of other naturopathic work to detox from things that I got exposed to in the military and growing up and things like that. And then, yeah, that's sort of the natural side of things. The spiritual side of things, I was always interested in that, but I guess where I really got into that, we used to foster these dogs, and some of them would get sick, and we didn't know how to treat them, and we were looking for natural ways to treat the dogs too. And I was talking to somebody, and I said, the only thing I know how to do is hold on to him and say, I love you, I love you, I love you. And she said, well, you're basically doing Reiki, so why don't you come learn how to do that? And I said, okay, that sounds cool.
Was this the Rottweiler rescue that you did? So you're holding a Rottweiler and you're telling the Rottweiler you love it.
Yeah, I figured like if I can say that and, you hear stories about that stuff, they can feel that and the dogs pick up on it. Yeah, we did Southern States Rottweiler rescue. For a while, we were foster fails. We had like 10 Rottweilers that lived with us. I think we adopted one of them out. But you get them and they're all sick, and then you get them back to health, and then they get super attached. But that was interesting, having 10 of those big dogs.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I owned one once, and just one is enough. Do you know what was in those drops that your wife gave you at the hospital?
Essentially, yes. It's water, sea minerals, and then an energetic imprint.
Okay.
What is that?
So an energetic imprint, you know how you go to the doctor, if you have heart trouble, they can put an EKG on you and they pick up the electrical signals from your heart.
Uh-huh.
Well, everything in nature has its own unique vibration. A molecule of oxygen has a certain vibration. A molecule of vitamin C has a certain vibration. And so throughout the years, scientists have learned how to measure these vibrations and frequencies. And so if they know what the frequency of a healthy heart is, they can actually imprint that frequency into water, and water is magical enough that it can hold frequencies.
Wow.
Once you impart them. And then when you take that into your body, the water in your body picks up on that frequency and starts to vibrate in resonance with that. It's kind of like if you were tuning a guitar and somebody next to you has a guitar tuned exactly the same. If you pluck your guitar string, theirs will start to vibrate because they're in tune.
Okay.
That's called entrainment, and vital or just subtle energies like that can entrain your body to come back to health.
Huh.
So like disease is dis-ease. Something is out of frequency.
Right.
If your heart's out of whack, the EKG shows that it's out of whack. When it's working right, it's kind of a sinus rhythm, which is very rhythmical. But everything in nature has that. Cancer cells have that, Back in the 20s, there was a guy named Royal Raymond Rife who figured that out, and he could destroy cancer cells by generating frequencies.
Wow.
And then Big Pharma found out about that and shut them down and said, you're a quack, and they got rid
Yeah,
of
the
that.
devil, Big Pharma.
Look up Rife machines. Everything's based on frequency and energy,
Okay.
including energy work like Reiki or saying, I love you. You're generating a frequency of love, and that's healing.
Huh.
Or if you're doing energy healing work, maybe with Reiki, you're sending a certain healing energy. With shamanic work, you're doing the same thing, but with a lot more focused intent. So you're holding the energy and an idea of something in your mind, and you're literally transmitting that energy to the other person to help clear an energetic imbalance.
Wow.
Steve says that I often have too much energy for him, so maybe that's what
You have an energetic imbalance, is what you have. You're either falling asleep at your desk or you're driving me crazy.
Well, some people are pretty high energy like that, but then there's a grounding energy too, right? Like I tend to get really up in my head thinking about things because I have that mechanical mindset, and it's a blessing. And sometimes it's rough because I can't stop thinking. So if I can go out and get grounded, that's super helpful.
So I want to go back. You had this heart event at the hospital, but you went back to work for the bank, right?
I did, yes.
How long did you do that? Because you had another sort of life-changing moment at the end of that. Tell us about that.
So I left the bank. I was in banking, I think, for just about 5.5, 6 years, about the time I thought maybe I would be. And then I got hired away by a client of mine to go be a CFO of a royalties company. And from there, I got recruited to go turn around an oil and gas company that was failing in 2008 when the prices went from $140 a barrel to 30-something. So I went in there, helped get the company turned around. It was a really difficult task. We had vendors showing up from all over the place wanting to get paid, and I had to tell them, hey, we're working with a bank on this. We finally got a hedge fund out of New York to come in and fund us, and shortly after that, the president of the company, we started noticing money missing. And we start looking, and we're like, oh, no. So like a couple months later, we had to sort of raise our hand and say, hey, we're missing some money. We're investigating it. We went through that whole process, and I ended up running the company. Again, I knew nothing about drilling oil and gas wells except what I'd read. And it was another one of those things of working super long hours, driving 7 hours to the field, spending a week out there. But we got some wells drilled, and that's when I kind of had the second brush with death, if you will. I got poisoned by hydrogen sulfide, which a lot of oil and gas wells make. It's that rotten egg smell.
Oh, yeah.
And in high concentrations, it's really, really deadly. So we were drilling a well out there, and these alarms started going off, and the guys on the rig started running away. And I was like, what are you doing? We're right in the oil zone. We need to log this. And they're like, well, my boss told me never to mess with that. And I was like, well, give me the thing. I'll go take care of it. So I did that, and we hit oil, and it was a good well, and I was fine. But then I kept being out in that field day after day. And I came home to Dallas, and I was like getting vertigo and almost passing out. I went to the ER on a Saturday. Sunday night, I'm like, we're still drilling wells. I got to go back out there. So I drove out there, still not feeling well. And then on a Tuesday, I was like in my little motel room in Iraan, Texas. It's Iraan. And I was like, I don't feel good. And then I had to vomit. I crawled over the toilet, and the whole world just started spinning, and I couldn't even crawl. I had so much vertigo. And I was like, man, I hope I don't dehydrate and die right here. So I somehow managed to crawl.
6
Well, the irony of it is, I've made jokes, forgive me, in the past about Elvis the King dying on the throne, because I was like, the irony is I might do the same thing. That was the thought that I had in my head. Like, if this is how I go out, that is irony.
And Elvis is going to meet you at the pearly
right?
gates.
He'd be laughing at me. How do you like them apples? Somehow I was able to crawl back over to the bed. And I mean, I felt like I was going through a tunnel that was just continuously turning. I kept falling over, even crawling. I hit my phone on speed dial. I just said, Perry, I need help. And then the next thing I know, guys were showing up in an ambulance.
Wow.
Get me, in my boxer shorts, talk about humbling, in the ambulance to go to the local hospital there. And I hear him saying something about, oh, maybe it's his heart. And I'm like, oh, boy. So they're doing all this stuff to me, and then they couldn't figure it out either. And then finally I figured out it was probably the hydrogen sulfide poisoning. So I was just in there on a ton of oxygen, waiting to get transferred somewhere else in the morning. And then I had that moment of like, I am in complete surrender right now. Like I can't turn my head a millimeter or I'll be violently sick. Like I can't barely breathe. Like that was surrender. Like I couldn't do anything. I had no strength to fight it. I had no strength to do whatever. I was just along for the ride at that point in time. And that also happened to be kind of at the height of my shamanic training. Because I was doing that in the field. We drill wells during the day. I'd put my guys to bed and I'd go back out to the field at night and do all that work with my teacher. So it just happened to coincide, and sometimes that happens when you're on that path where you have a brush with death. But I got to know what complete surrender was, and my now ex-wife called, and I just had to say, I'm so sorry, I can't talk. Please tell her I love her, and I can't even move my hands, like I can't even talk.
Wow.
And that was probably the most helpless I have ever felt.
That's crazy.
That is insane. Was that part of the beginning journey of the spiritual awakening that you talked about?
Yes, for sure.
So did you make a decision shortly after that?
Maybe oil and gas isn't for you?
Well, I kind of thought it was, because I still like had this fight in me. Like I have to make this happen. You hear that saying, like, make it happen.
Sure.
I thought, like, if I just work harder, if I just put in more effort, if I just push this or do that, like there's got to be a way to make this work. And then one day there wasn't. We made an offer to buy out the hedge fund that was working with us, and we couldn't agree on price. And, once you do that, you've played your hand and it's time to move on, right? Like you don't stick around after that. So they took over operations, which also turned out to be a blessing because the price of oil crashed again. And I ended up going to work in alternative energy, which was hydrogen fuel cells and that kind of stuff, for a small family office in Dallas. And again, my spiritual journey continued because we got to stay with a really cool family in Vietnam. And I visited a lot of Buddhist temples over there and had some great meditations. Neat. And, being from the military and hearing our side of the Vietnam War, it's pretty interesting to go to the Hanoi Hilton and see pictures there and realize that the Vietnamese really were trying to get the French, end French colonialism the same way we did in 1776 with the British. Mm-hmm. So for them, it was a war of independence. And yeah, there was some communism and stuff like that wrapped up in it too, but it was a different story than what I had heard from the American side. And the people there were great. But again, I was sitting there and I had a lot of post-traumatic stress from growing up. My childhood was pretty violent. I wasn't speaking to my dad at the time. But I was meditating in this Buddhist temple, and I was like an hour into this meditation. I started thinking about forgiveness, and I was like, man, I've done some mean things in my life and asked for forgiveness, and it would really hurt if the person that I asked forgiveness of didn't forgive me. And then I had the thought, well, if forgiveness is good enough for me, then it has to be good enough for everybody. I'm not special.
Father.
Yeah. Right. And so, shortly thereafter, he had written me a letter asking for my forgiveness, and we were able to reconcile, and we actually have a pretty good relationship now.
Oh, that's cool.
That happened in a temple in Vietnam in the middle of a meditation.
Wow.
And then my journey just kept going from there. I discovered Yogananda and started doing an hour and a half of meditation a day, self-realization fellowship, and then progressing even past that. Now there's a great gem here in the community called Radha Madhavdham, if you know that. It's a Hindu temple on 1826.
Oh, yeah.
Right by Nutty Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know where that. It used to be called, I can't remember.
It used to be the Friday Mountain Boys Ranch, up until the 90s, right?
Yeah, and then it became...
I can't think of the name. It's whoever is the head of the
it's got a little bit of a colored history prior to what it is now. Yeah.
Well, then I'm not sure the history, but now it's under Kripalaji Maharaj. He was named the greatest guru in India in the last 5,000 years, and he taught bhakti, which is devotion to source, whatever name you call God, just having devotion to God as the highest purpose of your life. It's not religious. It's between you and Creator, whatever you call that, but if people say, what's the meaning of life? Is it to achieve this, to get that, to do this, that's kind of how I built my life. Like, if I can just get here, if I just work harder, if I do this, I'll be respected. If I do this under that premise of bhakti, what I do is almost irrelevant as long as my intent is to honor Creator and just realize that that's where I come from, that's where we come from, and that's where we're going back to. and then offering everything up to that.
Wow. So
You know, you've I was reading in some of your bios that you've been described as your presence is very calming and non-judgmental. Are you able, or how have you able to transcend that into what you do now with the kids that you were mentoring and bringing them up in the business that you own right now?
I think just being patient with them. Or, sometimes we're doing jobs that are hard. We were joking earlier about making stuff up as we go. So you go up, sometimes you show up to a job and you're not really sure how that's going to happen. And so just being able to try to have that calm presence with them and talk them through things, or if things get slow, having that calm presence and talking through that with them. And don't get me wrong, they've seen me lose my stuff a couple of times, right? Like, I am not perfect. I'm not there yet.
And we're all like that to some degree, yeah.
Most of the time I can hopefully be there.
Hey, energy goes up and energy goes down, right?
And sometimes things are really stressful. Like, you've got a bunch of equipment on the clock and it's costing X, Y, and Z.
Somebody's
and things
being a
are breaking
dumbass.
And,
And you got
and sometimes the dumbass is me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
sometimes
things.
the dumbass is Michelle. Yeah.
Never
sometimes
the dumbass is Michelle.
Well, sometimes being patient too is just listening to the guys, because they actually have really great ideas.
Yeah.
So if I come into this with the idea that I have so much more experience, or I'm an engineering degree, I'm the one saying how we should do this.
Yeah.
They've had some amazing ideas. And there have been times when they're worked up and I can calm them down. And there are times when I'm worked up and they're calming me down. Like, I get to be real with them. And I'm like, guys, hey, I shouldn't have shown you that or done that or whatever. And they said, look, it's easy. It's cool. We're all human. We're here. You help us. We're here to help you. So the age thing doesn't really factor in. In my heart, I'm still 25, which is kind of the age
You're
of my
Gen
guys.
X. You're like me.
Right,
we don't
right.
age. I think I've always said that often about my parenting style. Like, I wasn't perfect in any means, but I think the greatest gift I ever gave my kids was the ability to say I was sorry when I did. I was like, "Ooh, that wasn't about you that I yelled you about," and it may have not have been the same day, but
well, it's not.
Might have been 20 years later.
Right, may have been 20 years later.
But that's still hard to say, right? Like, saying I'm sorry is we have this thing that we're not supposed to fail.
Especially when you're the boss, because everybody looks up to you to make the best decisions. And so, you as the boss, you hesitate to admit you had a failing because, but it is the right thing to do, especially when the mistake that you made really impacts the people that work with you.
Well, wait a minute. So, you know what? I thought it was really, really telling of our relationship last week when you go, "You're going to kill me." He goes, "You're going to kill me." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I killed the board. I killed the soundboard.
Soundboard.
I killed it." And I was like, you know what? It happens. So, okay, let's just move on. Let's go find something else to We'll replace it.
And it has ended up being a positive in the long run. But Dusty, I want to ask you, meditations. You've said that a couple times. Mm-hmm. What does a meditation session look like? What is that? Tell us walk us through that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's probably a lot of different concepts about meditation. I resisted it for a while. I'm like, well, I already do energy work. Do I need to meditate? And then I was like, well, what is it? How do I do it? Essentially, for me, what it is, if people study the Bible, you'll know the phrase, be still and know.
Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite verses. Yeah.
So meditation is that. Now, the question is, how do you do that? And generally, it involves a posture. So you can lay down, you can listen to meditation, you can do that kind of stuff. But for me, the way I teach it and the way I learned it is, you want to sit generally with an upright spine where you're comfortable. But having an aligned spine helps energy flow up and down your spine.
Okay.
Your eyes generally closed, although you can do open eye meditations as you advance. But closing your eyes to shut out the outside distractions, and it's basically turning our attention away from the outside world, our sense, our sound, smell, sight, everything, and turning our attention inside. And then slowing down our breathing. If somebody is angry or scared, we tend to breathe fast and shallow. And if we're deeply relaxed, we're breathing slow and deep. Well, you can tell your body you're relaxed by breathing slow and deep. And then it's like, oh, we're relaxed. So you do it in reverse, and it actually slows down your central nervous system. And that's a basic meditation. Then you can add things to it if you like a concentration on something. If you have a form of God that you like, or, Jesus, or whatever, Buddha, Krishna, you can hold that image in your mind and meditate on that. That's the concentration part of it,
Okay.
focusing on that. You can do something called a mantra, which in Sanskrit means mind protecting. Essentially your mind's going to think thoughts, so you're going to kind of tell it what to think. So we teach on your in-breath, you can say, I am, and on your out-breath, you can say peace or love. Or if you have a name of God you like, you can say that silently on the in-breath and the out-breath and just feel the vibration of that. And then eventually at the end, we just sit in the silence. And sometimes you will get insights or information or guidance. But with, the guys that I'm meeting with tonight, we meet pretty regularly. The guys I work with and some of their friends, they're all pretty high achievers. They're all mostly solopreneurs, stuff like that. And so we're always thinking about stuff and talking about business, and we like talking together. And at some point we're like, okay, we got to sit. We came to meditate. Let's meditate.
The sitting in silence seems
That would
very...
be. I actually my heart rate went up thinking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
It's probably real. I imagine the first couple times you do it, if you get 2 or 3 minutes,
You're doing
You're
great.
probably doing great.
Yeah. For me too. When I started, I found out I was uncomfortable with silence.
Yeah.
So sometimes people talk a lot when they're uncomfortable with silence, or we put the radio on, they'll have something going in the background, or, we have these different distractions. Because if we're questioning who we are, or we got to do something or be somewhere, if there's silence, we don't know what to do with ourselves. When really, we come from the void, and we kind of go back to that, and that's where creation happens, is in the void. If you look at the creation story, but for some reason, the silence can be scary. But then the more you do it, it's like going to the gym. Start out with 5 minutes a day. It's more important to do 5 minutes a day consistently than 2 hours once every 2 weeks, right? You'll build up to that. And then when you sit to meditate and you start to breathe and you go into the posture, then your body already knows what's happening. And then sometimes just by starting to breathe slowly, you can get that same effect because your body's conditioned to that response for that. And then you can go for longer and longer periods of time. I think you get the greatest benefit when you go for 30 minutes or more.
Wow.
Just by the time, even for me, like by the time my mind settles down, by the time my thoughts stop, by the time I can maybe stop thinking about my to-do list or what's for dinner or whatever, it takes a minute to get into that. And then once you do, then you can really get deep. And eventually you can even get to a place where like you don't want to stop. You're not like watching the clock, like, okay, is my time up yet? And if you do that, then like you're really in it.
What about if you're out like in the field, you're out in every day, like yesterday I was telling Steve, I got like really overwhelmed. I was really busy at work. And so do you have kind of like a suggestion of maybe a go-to grounding ritual or something that you can do if you're out in the field, if you're out, if I'm getting overstimulated by noise or people or work, what is something I can do where it's not going to make me look like I'm nuts sitting on the floor in the office?
Yeah, well, that's an awesome question, right? Because if you have clients in here or whatever, you don't necessarily want to go full lotus position and sit and do all that stuff. But sometimes you can just do the breathing, slow and deep. You can do something called even count breathing, where you breathe in and then hold and then breathe out for the same number of seconds. But even if you just slow your breath down and try to breathe from your belly, and you can almost feel the energy go up and down your spine, if you can just do that even for a couple minutes and close your eyes if you can, that will help calm you down. But I meditate while I'm driving, not full meditation, right? Like you can, but you can breathe like that.
I'm going to go see what kind of car you drive before you leave.
Hey, it's a big truck, so
with all the dents in it.
Yeah. No, but like, you're in Austin rush hour traffic, you can breathe and still obviously stay alert and watch everything that's going on. But I used to be a road rager way back in the day, like full on, like beating the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And through meditation, I just stopped that. And when I would start to feel that anger come up, I would just breathe instead. So you can breathe like that while I can still breathe like that when I'm driving and I'm hitting every red light on the way to dripping or whatever, right? And those things do help.
I can see your form of meditation definitely is your running, your exercise while you're out there.
100% is. If I don't do that, I'm a mess all day.
Yeah.
So,
we all suffer.
Yes, you do.
Do you get into a rhythm with your breathing when you're running and stuff? I mean, That's like they have walking meditations, but I imagine running meditations.
Yeah, well, I do a bunch of different sports, but what I find is all of the busy stuff that bounces around in my head the rest of the day all goes away. When I'm running, I'm really focused on how I feel and what my next step is and where I'm going, and I'm very in the moment. Or when I'm swimming, you feel, where your arm is and where you're breathing, and here comes the wall. You're very focused on that, and that it gives me a lot of peace. So I'm not only doing it to stay fit, but I'm also doing it for my mental health.
So you're like talking about presence, like present in that moment. Yeah. And that's meditation.
Yeah. The idea of sitting on the floor for 10 minutes and being quiet and focusing, honestly, I don't think I could do it. And it scares the hell out of me. It's like, I'm not good at being quiet and still. I'm really not good at that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not either.
Yeah, but you practice it, though.
Yeah. I mean, my mind is kind of the same way, too. And I did start with like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'd be like agitated and itching and wanting to get up.
Yeah, that's the way I know that's the way I'd be.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, so the tree service, we haven't really talked about that.
Yeah, even just coming into Drip. So now we've heard about your journey about from West Point to the corporate world and your spiritual journey. But why Dripping Springs? Why here? Why'd you land here in the hill country area?
So this, this is where I feel like my life has been guided, and we talk about like synchronicities or just, source unfolding things, kind of unfolding the path before me. So 2017 comes around, and that alternative energy gig ended. The company decided they weren't going to put any more money into it, so I came home and let them do their thing. And I could not get another job. Doing all the things that I did in corporate and, being C-level, I needed to get to a certain level of income and all of those things. So I was putting resumes out there. I was doing all the stuff that I've always done that always landed me a job, and none of it was panning out. Even stuff that seemed like a sure thing would, for one reason or another, not pan out. And after about a year of that, I'm really into my healing thing at this point, really into my spiritual journey, and I'm starting to feel inside like maybe I don't want to be in corporate anymore. But if I leave that, my life as I know it will end. So I won't have the big house. I won't be in this lifestyle.
Sure.
May probably lead to a divorce, which it did, but it was very, very amicable. I mean, as friendly as it could be.
Oh, that's good.
My ex wanted more of the corporate lifestyle and to do that sort of thing, and she wanted me to pursue my passion, which is a spiritual. So we wished each other well and just we called it a conscious uncoupling and separated. And I went out to California to live out in the mountains out there for a year with some folks that I knew and to do my healing thing.
Oh, that's when you lived off the grid.
Yes, I lived off grid, and that was culture shock. Like coming from Dallas or a place where you always have signal. If I was outside this main house, no signal, at all. And so my maps didn't work, and I'm up in the mountains on twisty roads, and I don't know where I'm at, and I can't talk to people. I have no Wi-Fi, nothing.
Ooh.
And in that area where I was, in a place called Shelter Cove, if your car broke down and you told somebody I had to walk 10 miles into town to get parts, they would say, and?
Yeah.
Of course you did.
That's how you live, yeah.
So that was a culture shock, but it was awesome. Right on the ocean, but living in the mountains. While I was there was a speaker, a guy named Matt Kahn, that I'd wanted to see for a long time in Portland, but I never made the trip from Dallas to Portland. And so I saw something pop up, and I'm like, I could drive there. And I also have friends up in Seattle. I could see them while I'm there. So I did that. I showed up at the retreat. It's a 3-day retreat. I'm there to learn. I'm not looking for anything. But on the third day of that retreat, with 300 and something people there, I saw a woman, and I went and sat down in the row next to her, and we struck up a conversation. I said, well, what do you do? And she said, well, I'm a hospice nurse. And I was like, oh, interesting. My parents are nurses. This is cool. She must be it takes an amazing person to be a hospice nurse.
Sure.
So we sat together for the rest of the day, and after the thing ended, that night later we went out, and we really hit it off. And I had her come back out to California a few weeks later. We went camping, did a lot of things, and we're married now.
Oh.
So cool. If I had sat anywhere else in that room and not followed my heart, I wouldn't be here in Dripping Springs, because I ended up down here because that's where her kids are.
Oh, okay.
So she'd been living down here with at the time for 14 years. I guess it's been 20 for her now. So I came down here with her after a sojourn back through Dallas after California and settled in here. And then again was like, okay, I'm going to build this healing thing or teach meditation. What am I going to do to supplement my income while I'm doing that? And during COVID, I worked at Whole Foods and helped run their e-commerce group because everybody was doing online groceries, but I didn't want to do retail forever. So I started working on this land and started cutting trees and doing that kind of work to support what I was doing. And my stepdaughter was like, well, what if your tree service business could be your outreach for young men? And I was like, I don't see how that would work. And I'm famous for stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Like things I said I'd never do. And I'll never drink wine. It turns out that I like it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm doing these jobs by myself after work and on weekends, and the jobs started getting bigger, and I would just hit up Gabe, my oldest stepson, like, hey, do you know anybody who's looking for a little bit of work? And then that just kept happening, and I was like, I think I see how this could work. And so now that's what we're doing. And yeah.
It has morphed into something bigger than you've ever thought. The transfer of energy is very interesting to me in the sense that you were in the industry, the energy industry.
Yes.
And
that's funny.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
I like that. You're tying it together.
Yeah. And then your energy is constantly being transferred. So now you're transferring this energy
and transformed.
And you're mentoring these young men.
Yeah.
And so not all the people that work for you are veterans either.
Correct.
You're a veteran-owned business.
Yes.
But your business has kind of just exploded a little bit.
It has, and we're blessed that way. Some of the guys who work for me are veterans, some of them aren't. That's not a requirement, but I happen to know them, and generally they're going to be great workers. But all the guys are super hard workers. Even this is like, to me, is like walking in faith or walking in a way like I'm not sure what's going to unfold next. The way we structured our business, a lot of the guys are 1099. They come when we need them. They not there when we don't, but it works.
Yeah.
And every time we need people, there are guys there, and they've all been amazing. Huh. And then we all hit it off, and we all talk. And I mean, everybody loves working outdoors. We love working together. We work faster than most crews, harder than most crews. We have an electrolyte drink we're going to be marketing that we've been drinking for a year that really helps us out.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. How you handle the heat in the summer here in Texas working at trees.
Hot.
Yeah.
So those, we're getting into the months now where we'll be drinking 3 or 4 gallons of water a day,
Oof, gosh,
depending on the jobs. And we have an electrolyte drink. We're calling it Dust Off. It's got a bunch of good stuff in it.
Oh, that's cool.
And that does help us because, I sweat profusely. The guys laughing. I'm like, guys, I have a condition. Like once it starts for the day, it's going to go
I'm the
until
sweater.
we're finished. Yeah, I'm the heavy sweater. No, we've gotten big. We're one of the highest rated tree service companies in the area, and I don't know if I can say this yet, but we just won Best of Dripping Springs for this.
Oh yeah,
Wonderful.
And now we're offering lawn care at the request of one of our really big property management companies. They wanted us to help them out with that because we're really quick and responsive with them, and their tenants love us. So now we also offer lawn care, and we're going to build that out. And I guess the way spirituality folds into this, if you study Bhakti, if you study these other spiritual paths, is this idea of selfless service. They would call it Seva, S-E-V-A. Our tagline is when good enough isn't good enough, call us. And there's days when you're so, so tired. You're looking up. If you look at the whole pile of brush or the whole whatever, you'd just be like, we're never going to finish this. But if you it's like a meditation, you take the next step, the next step, the next step, get the next branch, and then go drop that off. And you keep doing that, that's manageable.
Right.
And in an hour, you look up, the pile's almost gone.
That's how we've kind of
you
described
talk
it.
about that a lot when people are getting their houses ready for sale. She'll walk in and she'll say, okay, you need to do these things. And then she will say, don't think of it as all of this needs to be done at once.
Right.
This little thing here done, this next little thing, this next little thing, be over before you know it. Yeah.
You're not going to eat an elephant all at
Yeah,
once,
that's right.
What is about one piece of advice you think you would give to kind of an aspiring entrepreneur, kind of like what you did, like things that you've kind of learned, your lessons that you've learned, like, don't do that, but do this?
Yeah. Probably a good one for me, and I actually have a mug that Lori gave me that says don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Sometimes, execution is key, right?
Steve's really good about that.
Yeah.
He's really
Overthinking
good
things
about
or
that.
executing?
Executing. I'm the overthinker in the
Yeah,
relationship.
when we
in
first
this
started about
professional
this, I
relationship.
said, Michelle, we're going to do a podcast. And she came up with a list of like 50 things we needed to do. And I said, no, we're going to buy a mic and a mixer, and we're going to start recording ourselves. And then boom. And there we were.
Yeah. So maybe don't overthink it. There's a time to move forward, right, and trust. And then something to do is do excellent work.
Yeah.
Do more than you said you were going to do. Sometimes maybe you don't make as much money, or you might even lose money once in a while. But if you told somebody you're going to show up on this time and this day and do this, then do that and a little more.
Yeah.
Right? A phrase for us is if this were my house, this is what I would do when homeowners are overwhelmed thinking about that. And then when we're doing the work, well, if this were my house, how would I want this to look? Would I want stuff left on the ground? No, I wouldn't. Would I want that stub not cut off? No, I'd want it to be clean.
Sure.
So just really do great work.
The follow-up work, kind of going back through. And
So one of the big callings for you is mentoring these young men. So what are some of the things you mentor them about?
Sometimes life. How do we show up in life? Like, what, as a man, does it mean to be, tough on the outside but soft on the inside? How do you treat women? How do you treat other men? Is it all about partying? It's not. And a lot of these guys are having, that's what started it. They were like, hey, I have the choice between going out with my friends and getting wasted or being spiritual and being alone. Like, what do I do?
Oh.
And they have questions about life. So, I got a few more miles on my body than they do and a few more maybe different experiences, so I can share that with them. Or they'll have these thoughts like, hey, what about this? And it's some spiritual question. And I'm like, how do you know about that? These younger guys are just coming in with that. I had to read books about that. I had to do certain things to learn about it. So just encouraging them that you're on the right path, like you're on to something, keep exploring that. And then I also mentor them in business. So I'm pretty open about our books. I'm pretty open about what's going on. We sit down and plan together. I show them everything. And in fact, I got to update my website, but Danny, one of the guys who started out with us, wanted to do his own thing. So he's doing pressure washing now. And I'm going to get together with him and help him set up his LLC and help him set up his insurance and walk him through all the different things that I did and how I did those to help him succeed. So it's not like I want him to come in and never leave. I mean, of course, I don't want to lose good people.
Sure.
But if he wants to do that, then I'll show him to the best of my ability how to set up and run a business and do the deductions and accounting and all that kind of stuff.
Dusty, are you finding that with some of these young men, not all of them, I'm not going to pigeonhole all young men, but do you find that some of these young men, they don't really have those strong male role models in their life right now, that there was just like this whole generation of young men that just forgot how to be men?
I think so. And I say that because I've asked them that question, like, what do you guys need? And some of the guys who are 18, 19 years old say they have a lot of friends who are upset or suicidal because they don't have a strong male role model to look up to. And they look out at the world and it looks pretty messed up.
If you're looking for messed up, you're going to find messed up,
that's
right?
true.
Well, and you hear it
But
on the
you're-
news,
you're
right? Like the
inundated
news
with it,
sells.
yeah.
They don't sell happy stories.
Right.
They sell
No, that's
sad
true.
stories. So just talking about that, and again, the nature of reality, and who are we really? Like, we're a soul. We're not the physical body. We're a soul. So what does that mean? What are the implications there? And then, like, teaching them it's okay to be masculine, like to be strong. That's what we say, like, be hard on the outside, but soft on the inside. I think there's been a tendency over the past decade or two for men to be super
Demasculated.
Well, masculine became a derogatory word. I mean, it became, you're masculine. Like, people would say it like it was a bad thing. There is a way to be a strong man, a strong human being without imposing yourself on other people and harming them. You can stand up for yourself and be a role. You're being a role model.
Yeah, how to take care of business. I mean, not because we don't really teach a religion, more just the spiritual side of things. I mean, Jesus came in and kicked over tables when the time called for it.
Right.
But he didn't treat people like that.
Right. What advice do you have for people who are in a job that they hate and they feel like they can't do anything else?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. One thing I think would be looking for the nuggets of gold you can mine out of that. I was in that. I actually, and no disrespect to bankers, but to me, having to write reports and sit in front of a computer, even today, I describe that as soul sucking for me. For some people, it's amazing,
Sure.
right? But for me, I really struggled with that. So I had to look at, okay, what am I learning? You know, I made this 5-year commitment to myself to stay in this. What can I get out of this? So that's one thing. Another thing would be, don't be afraid to admit that you feel miserable doing this, and then start thinking about what you'd like to do.
Yeah.
And how you might get there, and then don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to try something too. And you might fail. I failed at things.
I actually don't think failure is a real thing. Failure is a step on the way to success. So, we tried that. That didn't work. Okay, we're going to try this. See if this works. Yeah. Failure is just learning something that didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as you're committed to the end goal.
And just not overthink. I think sometimes we start thinking about, at least me, how things could possibly not work, and then I might not take action. Or if I try it, it might work better than I thought.
Yeah.
But
I think thinking about the next step. Okay, what am I learning here that's going to help me get to the next step, which might be a life that I enjoy a little bit more? Because you're focused on the hope and the possibility that things will be better rather than I'm stuck in this cubicle sitting at this computer 9 hours a day.
And then being alert for synchronicities. Like if you're asking for something, thinking about something, whatever, and something pops up and you get that like feeling in your heart, like maybe there's something to this, then pay attention to that and see if that leads somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many pressures though right now too of young men to kind of like in your 20s, that's when you're supposed to be figuring stuff out, right? You're supposed to be learning who you are and what you want and what you don't like, but there's just like these social media influencers, you should already have your fancy car. I mean, we live in a culture of being in debt is okay.
Yeah. Well, and who knows that stuff anyway, right? I had my life figured out when I went to West Point. I was going to do 20 years in the military. I had no question about that.
It's true.
And then I was going to be a banker, and then I was going to do this, and then I was going to do that. And, I guess people would have said at the time, this guy's got it together and he's got it figured out. And then none of that, like I'm not doing any of that right now.
I think I think almost everybody you talk to when they're in their, second part of their life will say, well, I had this plan that didn't go the way I thought it was going to go.
I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
You're going to grow up eventually, Michelle.
That's true.
Well, and another thing I think is, and Mike Rowe talks about this a lot.
I
but
love
like
that guy.
The trades.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
A lot of kids aren't going to college. And the guys that I work with didn't, and I don't think that's a stigma. I think back in the day that was like a key that had to go into a lock that got you in somewhere. But I used to, when I mentored people after my MBA, from my experience, I said, when you get your MBA, you're a master of nothing, right? You have a master's degree, but you're a master of nothing. Like I learned so much on the job that wasn't in the books or whatever. Like you don't need that today. You can Google stuff. You can use ChatGPT. You can do all these things. And I saw a guy driving a few months ago, and I guess he had a good sense of humor. You could tell it was a tile guy for sure because he had all the tile stuff in his truck and he was going somewhere. And he had a bumper sticker that said "Por no estudiar," which means for not studying. Right? Like this is what I get.
Yeah.
It's like there's a stigma that you have to do this kind of work if you don't study.
There totally is a stigma, and just coming off graduation season, I remember all three of my kids took different paths, every single one of them. And I remember it was so geared towards, and you celebrated the kids that went to college. Like, oh my gosh, this is the college of their choice. And my middle son, he went straight into the military. Got his degree while he was in the military, served 8 years, and now he's in med school.
Yeah.
My older one, he was like, I'm taking a gap year. I was like, the hell you are.
Yeah.
And he went right into his profession. Now he's getting his MBA in 2 weeks. And then my daughter went to trade school. And she's making more than both of them put together.
Yeah.
So I just think you've got to find your path. You got to especially if you're a parent, you got to clue into what your kids are good at.
And the path of graduate high school, go to school for 4 or 6 years, and then get your career job. It really rarely works that way. For most people, that's not a reality.
Well, and it's interesting. I have stepkids, but none of my own kids. But I would imagine as a parent, that's got to be one of the hardest things is letting your kids find their path because you have so much wrapped up emotionally and you love them and all that stuff, and you don't want them to fail. Like we were talking about.
It's the failure part,
Well, but then they end up in jobs. Sometimes they end up in jobs they absolutely hate because that path was sort of pushed on them and chosen for them. Everybody should choose their own path in life. I mean, with some direction and some help and some encouragement, but it should be your own path. It's your journey. I mean,
That's
you
right.
get 80 or 90 or 100 years here. It's your journey. It's not
Right?
anybody else's.
Can you imagine if, like, when you were 18 years old, if your father said, "This is what you were doing, why you're
Well,
doing
he did,
it,"
and that's why I moved out of the house when I was
Exactly,
18 years old,
see?
because I was like, "Screw you!
Yeah.
I'm doing my own
Yeah.
thing."
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to do your rapid
I am.
fires?
I have a couple of rapid
Okay.
fire questions for you. Okay. What is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? Your morning routine?
I literally wake up meditating. I try to start thinking of the name of God and be grateful.
Oh, there you go.
I don't do that.
Yeah, listen. What is your favorite tree species to work with?
No question, live oaks.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've never seen trees that grow the way they grow with the curves and the way that the
Yeah.
branches can be wavy. No contest.
It's
live
like
oaks.
God's artwork, isn't it? Yeah, they're
There's-
such pretty
and
trees.
so strong. And
Yeah.
I've seen some that are 300, 400, 500, 600 years old down here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And I
Yeah.
bet you do you like to cut down those cedars?
I don't have anything against any tree species, but yeah, I like clearing land. I like making art. I like limbing them up sometimes. They can
Yeah.
look really pretty if you prune them.
Some of the older ones that have, the trunks are real big. Yeah, you prune
Yeah.
those, they actually can be very pretty.
How about one tool that you cannot live without, whether it's spiritually or within your tree service?
Oh man, that's a good one. There's probably more than one. I mean, business-wise, texting. I couldn't live without
Oh,
that.
really? Yeah.
Spiritually, I couldn't live without meditation.
That's a
I
great
could see
answer.
that,
That's a very good answer. If you had to live off the grid again, I told Steve this question earlier,
Uh-oh.
but this time you're in Texas.
Okay.
What is the one thing it would be really hard to live without?
Water.
Oh. Well, hopefully when you're off the grid, you still have.
Now, if it was... all right, so if I was all the way off the grid, internet communications.
Yeah.
Internet.
Oh, yeah.
Internet.
Yeah.
That was so hard living off grid. Like
I bet.
You're so like you don't realize till you can't get on your phone how much you depend on your phone.
I would last 5 minutes.
You wouldn't even last.
There were
5
times when I was
minutes.
like,
love
I was
five.
panicking. I'm like, I can't call anybody. Like I'm just.
I think for me, air conditioning would be one of
Yeah. Air
those
conditioning.
things. But
Running water.
they did it for thousands of years. Air conditioning is only like 75 years
And that's
old.
why
so-
they only lived till they were like 25 years old.
32 was grandma in
That's
a
it.
rocking
Yeah.
chair.
That's
Yeah.
right. Okay, I have my last question.
Okay.
What would your younger self think of the man you are today?
I think I'd be proud of me.
Yeah.
If we're kind of going back to my roots, if you will, a lot of people in my life growing up who did this kind of work, and I wanted to get away from that. But I think I'd be proud of that I was able to walk away from some of the things I walked away from. You said this is episode 180.
180.
Yeah.
So talking about doing 180s, I think I'd be proud that I did a 180 and that I'm actually out doing my own thing.
And you weren't scared to take a chance that something was better.
Oh, I was scared, but yeah.
But you had a respectful
Yes.
scared. You were like, okay, this is daunting, but it's not going to stop me from doing it.
Yeah. I put my stuff in a car and drove to California, whatever I could take with me. And, that I really
I
feel
did the
like I
same
was
thing
guided.
back when I was about 19 years old.
Really?
I've never left Texas.
Wow. Yeah.
I want to say I'm so honored that you chose to spend your time with us here today. And the bigger picture that I have gotten out of this is I feel like you're the kind of person that you want to leave the world a little better than you found it.
For sure.
And thank you so much for spending the time
Dusty,
here.
where can people find out more about what you do?
I appreciate that so much. So our website is dynamodustytree.com, www.dynamodustytree.com. There's information on there. They can reach out to me. There's a contact us form on there. We have social media, that kind of stuff as well. But that's probably the best place to find us.
Yeah. You were very responsive when I reached out to you, and you guys I expected maybe it'd be like a 2 or 3 week wait, and you guys had it done in just a few days.
Yeah.
Did a great job.
We
so.
definitely don't like to keep people waiting.
No, yeah, and most of the time when they got the bug to do it, they need it. Or if it's a storm or something like
Right.
we just had, they can't wait for 2
Right.
weeks.
We're pretty
but-
stacked up with that stuff right now. But
Yeah.
again, that's one of the things, like, again, if it were us, would we want to wait? No, we wouldn't. So let's hustle and
Yeah.
get out there and knock it out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time today, and thank you for coming in. I know you're super busy, so thanks for coming in the studio.
And we have air conditioning in here.
Hey, you know what? I could be
And we
out
got
sweating
water,
right
too.
now.
We got water and air conditioning.
No, I really appreciate y'all having me on. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate you taking an interest and having a conversation
Our
with
Yeah,
me.
pleasure.
thanks, Dusty.
Yeah.
Find your joy at Jovi Belterra. Life is better here. This thoughtfully designed 55-plus community is paired with resort-style amenities and social activities. They offer 1- and 2-bedroom homes located in Dripping Springs, the gateway to the Hill Country. Make friends, make memories, make time for you at Jovi Belterra. Live JoviBelterra.com, 737-387-6870.
From rodeo clowns, teachers or doctors, and everyone in between, Texans have one thing in common: hard work deserves smart banking. At Southstar Bank, whether you're buying your first home, building a dream ranch, or just managing daily finances, our 16 branches across Central Texas are here for you. Southstar Bank, trusted by professionals, backed by tradition, and built for Texas. SouthstarBank.com, member FDIC, an equal housing lender, NMLS 410624. Your weekend doesn't really start till you're with Deep Eddy Vodka.
The tasting room in Dripping Springs, where the Hill Country gathers.
Sip real fruit vodka, handcrafted cocktails, or a mocktail if you're keeping it light.
Food trailers on the weekends, a family-friendly vibe, and you've got your new favorite hangout. Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Sip local, sip real in Dripping Springs.
Follow Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room on Facebook and Instagram for what's pouring and what's happening.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallet Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at malletintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.